Welcome back to Outnumbered. So Bill Maher airing some end-of-the-year frustration with his own party, telling John Stamos that he's over Democrats who view fighting President Trump as their entire identity. Watch.
It is hard. It is a phenomenon we have never seen before.
Right.
That one person would dominate
every
just the
conversation,
national
every dinner
for over a decade.
Yeah.
You know, but and I do think you have to fight that. Like I say, if that's your whole personality, is the first thing out of your mouth is, what are we going to do about Donald Trump? I just can't.
Meanwhile, political analyst Nate Silver says that mindset is part of a bigger problem, telling CMA4 he's, quote, surprised to some extent by the unwillingness of a certain Democratic faction to admit they blanked up last year. I think we can fill in the blank there. You know what I'm talking about. All right, and he goes on to warn that Democrats are allowing Gavin Newsom to pull them right back toward a recycled California playbook that failed with Kamala Harris. Todd, I want to start out with Bill Maher's point that Democrats have made Trump derangement syndrome their entire personality. Rosie O'Donnell comes to mind. She recently did a video talking about how her therapist instructed her to talk about Donald Trump less, and then made a video talking about that. So why do you think some Democrats are so consumed with their hatred of President Trump?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, he triggers them in the way that only Trump derangement syndrome can. And two, I think for many of them, they do not want to talk about the issues. And I think this gives them cover to just say, Trump, vote for me. Whereas in the midterms, which Democrats should win because Republicans are the party that controls D.C. right now, Democrats should at least win the House. Unless Democrats focus on the things where Trump admittedly could be vulnerable in 2026, healthcare and the economy, and I don't mean Trump himself, I mean Republicans, because they have to play defense in the messaging on those. Unless they focus on those areas, Republicans could easily take back the House. I think Republicans would win the House if magically the tax refunds were given out in April and we voted in April. Unfortunately, Republicans have to wait about 7 months before the November elections. Trump's going to have to deal with that. Democrats give him a gift if all they're doing is talking about Trump.
You know, Caroline, Trump derangement syndrome helped cost Democrats the 2024 presidential election. They were so fixated on their hatred for President Trump that they missed the kitchen table issues that Americans cared about. Do you see any course correction from them heading into the midterms?
No, we thought they were going to do course correction, but they buried that autopsy. They buried this special self-examination of what really happened in 2024. So there's no introspection going on. There's no confrontation of the 80-20 issues, like you said, Todd, like how the open border idea and how men and women's sports is very unpopular with most moderates across the country. And the other thing that I think is sad for them, actually, is these recent off-year elections that Democrats have been winning in all of these very deep blue areas. I knew it was going to give them false confidence that they're in better shape than they actually are. I mean, this is a party with an 18% approval rating. They were so low on cash that they had to take a $15 million loan in October. This is not a healthy enterprise. This is not a good operation, but clearly they think that they can ride the coattails of just criticizing Trump to the next election.
But Leslie, one way to take accountability for failure is to release an autopsy report. And to be honest about that, yet the Democrat National Committee refuses to release the 2024 autopsy report. Why won't they?
Few things. First, I think they should. I agree with you. But I don't think that you need to have a report, an autopsy, or be a rocket scientist with a degree from Harvard to know why we lost. And we did already. Myself and all of my fellow Democrats talked about why we lost. And I'm sorry, we have done course correction. 25 Republican state seats that we flipped, Republicans flipped 0. We flipped a gubernatorial seat in the state of Virginia. You want to say it's blue? Is Glenn Youngkin a Democrat? New Jersey, we have a governor there. Here in this city, incredible turnout. And what we are doing, Todd, I would agree with you that we need to look at the issues where Republicans and where the president are not doing well. I mean, he's hemorrhaging Latinos, youth and independent voters right now on issues such as immigration, on issues such as the economy. And that's what Democrats need to do. But they don't need to have just one message. I mean, yes, when you're in a federal election, what we've seen that has been successful, what's been very successful for the new mayor here in New York and every single Democrat success in each state is they're going to the people, They're pounding the pavement and they're saying, what will make your life better? What are the issue or issues you care about? And that's what they need to campaign on.
You know, Tommy, Nate Silver noted that, like, doubling down on Gavin Newsom potentially as a nominee doesn't make sense, looking at the failure of another California progressive, Kamala Harris. Do you agree with that? Would that be a mistake for Democrats?
I never underestimate Gavin Newsom because he's very ambitious. I think that Gavin and Kamala, they're both from California, but they're very different. I think Gavin Newsom is much more shrewd than Kamala Harris, and he's much more strategic. I think he's a horrible leader, and he's going to have to answer for California. But I think as far as Democrats go, he's got the best chances as of now. But the biggest thing that's going to make the difference in the midterms is not necessarily the social media strategy or the pounding the pavement. It's going to be Republican turnout. So in that sense, Leslie, I agree with you because Democrats have a better ground game. They're angry. Republicans aren't angry right now. You can't just turn out when you're angry. You have to also turn out if you want this mandate to be fulfilled. So if you like the way immigration is going, and most of us do, you've got to continue to vote even when Trump isn't on the ballot. It's going to be about turnout. I saw it in that special election in Tennessee. The Republican won, but it should have been a blowout, and it wasn't because Democrats were energized and they were out there knocking doors. Republicans get complacent. They want to have high-dollar fancy dinners at Mar-a-Lago, but they don't want to put in the ground game effort that they did in 2024. Too big to rig worked, but it has to be replicated in every single election, the local level, state level, and the general as well.
Well, and a lot of it, too, will come down what does the economy look like heading into the midterms, and also how do Americans feel about the economy heading into the midterms.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.